New York, big city of dreams. New York, big city of dreams.
Testing 1 2 3. It seems like the sound went out. What's going on? This is Jay Ellis from Knick of Time Show here, giving you that Knicks talk just in the nick of time. Guys, let me know if you can hear. I cannot hear any sound coming through my headphones. So let me know if you guys can hear me. But the Knicks have just beat the Magic 102-89, led by my man Grimes Times, who was in his bag just now. Grimes finishes the game with 22 points, 4 assists, and 6 rebounds. Also following McBride finishes the game with 23 points, 5 assists, and 3 steals. And Sims finishes the game with a double, 12 points and 10 rebounds. All right. Let's get to it. And we're going to talk about the details of the game. Before we talk about the details of the game, you already know what it is. Let me introduce my guys. First and foremost, I call him the man, the myth, the legend, the guy, stats and the facts.
Ryan G's in the building. I can just smell that Summer League championship is coming.
Summer League championships is in the mail. The check is on the way. We Steph Curry there right now. All right. Grimes is already pointing to the mid finger in the third quarter. The Summer League championships is on the way. All right. But of course, joining us today also is my man Lee from Deadspin and Posting and Toasting. What's going on, Lee?
What's going on, y'all? Ready to talk to Knicks.
Let's go. Let's get it. And listen, man, I know you guys have been all over Twitter and all over the news. We're definitely going to talk about the Donovan Mitchell situation heating up with Utah. So hang tight. We are getting to that hot topic for sure. But before we get into that hot topic, let's briefly break down this game and this win. I'm back for a win, Ryan. You can't have all the fun. When I was gone, the Knicks was winning all these games. I came back. We ended up losing, but now I'm back for the win. And I'm going to celebrate, damn it, because listen, there's certain things I'm looking for certain players, and for the last 3 games, I'm looking for something very specific from players like McBride and Grimes, and pretty much, oddly enough, the same thing, and it's dribble penetration. And I'm gonna start off with talking about McBride. For the last few games, I've seen McBride hit some jumpers, hit some mid-range games, but today is like the first game where I really start to see him get into the paint a little bit more, and not necessarily all the way into the paint, but just getting those paint touches, and that's something that we need from McBride. So tell me, what did you see from McBride's game? I'll start with you, Ryan, today. What did you see from McBride's game, and do you feel like you happy with what you saw today?
Yeah, I mean, tonight was easily McBride's best game in the Summer League since it began. As you know, the first 3 games I talked about McBride's lack of penetration and him settling for the jumper as opposed to, actually getting into the lane and actually creating in the lane and finishing at the basket. But today he showed an all-around game. Today he attacked the basket often. He may not have finished at the basket at a high rate, but he attacked the basket. He was able to create off of those drives into the lane, and he was able to, find guys open for 3-point shots. Guys were cutting, and he was able to find them as well. He also scored at all 3 levels. So he scored at the 3-point level, the mid-range, and he also had a little floater game in the lane as well. So I thought tonight was McBride's best game easily in the Summer League. And this game tonight is what I would say that what is something that I would, call like McBride's like ideal game. Like if I'm looking for something from McBride, like tonight was the game where I'm I see everything that I need to see from him.
Yeah, this is what I want to see from McBride. besides the 6 turnovers, everything else I felt like he did pretty well. Shot 69% from the field, did pretty well. Because when you're a guy who's not that fast, and you have to rely on angles, changing of pace, getting into people's bodies to create space, and I felt like he did that pretty well today. I don't know. What do you have to add to that, Lee?
Yeah, I think you played some really excellent defense as well. If you look at the backcourt for Orlando, there were 2 no-name guys, Devin Kennedy and Xavier Simpson. They shot a combined 25% from the field, and even worse, about 12% from the three-point line. So I thought McBride played really good defense. What he's going to give you on the defensive side of the ball, but offensively, he was also in his bag. I've liked the offensive arsenal he's shown us in Summer League, even more than I've liked from Grimes. I think McBride's been more well-rounded, and his stats across the board show that. I mean, he's chipping on the rebounding and assist side with 5 dimes and 5 boards. He's even chipping on the turnover side too.
Yeah, time for that triple double.
Yeah.
I think the sample size would be a lot more micro if we go into the regular season. He's not going to be playing almost 29 minutes a game. No. He's going to be cut down to about 12 to 14 minutes on a good night when the shot is on. So I think he can give you a really solid 8, 3, and 4, night in, night out when Thibs is playing them as a third string point guard.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's interesting you mentioned the Grimes versus McBride comparison. What do you feel like Grimes is missing from what you want to see? Because you kind of mentioned that you liked more what you saw from McBride than Grimes today.
During the first podcast that we did for Summer League in Game 1, I really thought McBride was shooting way too many threes. I think he chucked like 13 or 14 that game, if I can remember. He had 11 tonight, and out of 7 shots that he made, 4 of them were threes. So I would like to see him actually get into the intermediate range a little bit, showing off his pull-up shot, getting to the basket. We are seeing that from McBride, but Grimes can be settling too much for that three-point shot. I really want to see him mix it up a little bit, although I think he's really playing how he would play in a regular season game. He's going to have him out there ISOing, in the corner. He's not wanting to be a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. This is his opportunity to show us he does have something else. If one of our perimeter guys goes down in injury, God forbid, he fills in a pinch, I like to see a little bit more of a well-rounded game. With Summer League, he's being featured as a primary offensive weapon, and he's been playing one of the best the best runs in the Summer League overall. Just want to see a little bit more diversity in the offense opposed to just chucking threes.
Do you agree with that, Ryan?
From Grimes, I do agree to an extent, because at times Grimes does settle for threes. There are situations where, it'll be early in the shot clock and he'll just toss up a 3 as opposed to, try to break down the defense or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, I feel like Grimes has shown enough growth in his game, because he showed me some things where I didn't see from him last season.
Yeah.
Like, for example, some of the playmaking ability, he's definitely improved in that area. Also, he's improved in his handle as well. He done some moves tonight where I didn't see that from. I did not see that from Grimes last year, especially that move where I think the defender was coming from his right, and he went behind the back and lost the defender and pulled up for the 3.
Yeah.
He missed the 3, but I was like, that move was nasty, and I didn't see anything like that from Grimes last year.
What?
And so I do agree with Lee from the standpoint of he does settle for threes too much. He relies on the three-point shot too much, but at the same time, I think he has made strides in his game where you see improvement, and you see, you definitely see him going forward being a more rounded player.
Yeah, I mean, there's a caveat to that. He's not Steve Novak. He's not just a pure catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. He is showing you that he has the ability to put the ball on the floor, step back, sidestep, pull up threes. So he's not just like, your basic ass three-point shooter. He does have ability on the perimeter to do some creating off the dribble to get his own shot, but those shots tend to be more often than not three-point shots. I just want to see a little bit more get to the basket. I'd like to see more than 6 free throw attempts. I'd like for that number to be up to 8 or 9.
Yeah, it's interesting because, quickly kind of went through this thing too, when he's kind of given the keys. The first thing that you're trying to do is find that balance between shooting threes, setting people up, and going to the basket. And that's kind of just the growing pains you get when you have more freedom. It's like, okay, what do I do with this freedom? You're like a kid, you're going wild, you're staying up all night, right? It's like, when you just first go into college, he's like, screw homework. I'm out to 3 in the morning, I'm drinking, I'm partying. And then you start to wheel it in a little bit because, wait a minute, I still got to graduate. So I feel like that's what's happening with Grimes right now. He's just pulling from 3, trying to figure out that balance. and he's trying to figure it out on the fly. But some of the flashes I've seen from him figuring it out on the fly has been pretty good. The handle, I've seen some mistakes with the handles, but I've also seen a lot of growth, a lot of moves have not seen this year. He's obviously been working on that, and I did like that he's. I feel like it was like a quarter or something. I feel like he made a more concerted effort to like go to the hole. But I do agree, 11 threes is a lot. But it's funny because Grimes averaged 8 threes a game in college and shot 40%. So him having the green light on the team is like, all right, I average 8 threes a game. I'm gonna shoot 10 and 11, and that's pretty much what he shot today. But it's just, I feel like when you are the guy and you're like more of the motor of the offense, I think kind of what happens is your body's adjusting to fatigue. Like if you're not like a guy who's super in shape, I feel like sometimes you might fatigue and you start to miss free throws and you start to miss shots you usually take. And I feel like the extra weight he's carrying on offense is kind of affecting his field goal percentage a little bit, because he only had 36% of the field from field today. He's like the last game he missed like 2 free throws. To me, it seems like a sign of fatigue to me. Overall though, really good game from. I like the aggressiveness from Grimes for sure. I like that he tries new things. That's what Summer League is for. It's for trying new things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
All right, and shout out to everybody in the chat. I see 98 people in the chat, so gunshots over here. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you're feeling the show so far. We definitely talking about the Knicks Summer League, and we're also going to talk about the Donovan Mitchell situation. So definitely stay tuned for that conversation that's showing up. But shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to Fritz Almighty Finesse. Be civilized. Sherwin over here. Jason Vicara. And everybody else who's rocking with the KTG, the KOT show, okay? All right, now let's get to. Also, I want to highlight Sims, who was once again a man amongst boys, 12 points and 10 rebounds. But I also kind of want to. It's funny. Jean Montero had an interesting game to me today because he has this kind of handle that's on a string. But I feel like he has the handle that's on a string, but he doesn't have like the presence of mind to know like when to pass the ball and when not to. So a lot of times I feel like he breaks his man off the dribble and then causes a turnover. But I don't know. I feel like there's something there. Today he had a pretty nice first quarter, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 turnovers as well. But to my point, 1 assist. How do you feel about Jean Montero's game today? Only 16 minutes. I know it's not a big topic, but I don't know. He seems like a nice, maybe in a few years, who knows, nice backup. We got a lot of backup point guard prospects coming.
Yeah, Montero's just 18, 19 years old, so he's a young guy. He has time to develop his game, but overall for Montero, like, to me, he's definitely a work in progress. He's definitely a kid that you can work with, and I feel like, within 2 to 3 years, if he gets the proper development, he could definitely make a roster in the NBA. Because, the skills are there, especially defensively. He's definitely shown defensively, especially on the ball. He has active hands on defense, which is a positive. He definitely causes havoc on the other end. Offensively, like you say, he has a good handle. His basketball IQ probably needs to be picked up a little bit more. But besides that, like, he's a good player. Like, you can tell that, if he gets the right environment and he gets the right coaching, he can definitely be an NBA player down the line.
It's a project. He's a project, but I don't know. It's a little something backup, something there. But who knows? We have another backup point guard overseas who can do it. And
he kind of reminds me a little bit of Alonzo Trier back in the day when we had him coming off the bench. Someone who has like a lot of upside offensively, who has some, he's a good ball handler. He's a decent facilitator, but he's more of a shoot first scorer. I think he has a lot of those capabilities as a guard. I'm glad that we have him now, that we actually have like a natural development coaching
Yeah.
staff. We actually have a farm league where we put someone into our G League. They get better. They come out and can play when we need them during stretches. We have some injuries in terms of position. So I think he can actually develop now opposed to under Steve Mills when David Fizdale was coach. And, so Keith Smart breaks a shot when you start working with him after hours like we did with Dennis Smith Jr. We're in a better position now to have these young guys as fourth and fifth options off the bench to eventually help us out down the line 2 or 3 years from now. There's hope there.
There's definitely hope there. It's like him, Sims. We already know Sims is going to be great in a couple of years. He's great now, really. He's great now, really.
He's our best rebounder.
Yeah.
He just needs a hit. If he ever gets a jump shot, it's a wrap. And Hunt as well. And Hunt as well, who gave you 13 points and 3 assists. I don't know if
Daquan Jeffries is good too.
What happened?
I like what Daquan Jeffries has brought to the table as well. He's been pretty consistent with his 3-point shot. He's a pretty solid rebounder too. He gives effort on defense as well. Yeah,
Daquan Jeffries is another nice player. He's shown flashes. The one the play that stood out to me was he kind of split 2 defenders and had like a little layup splitting 2 defenders. I'm like, that was nice. Daquan has showed some signs of life. So I don't know if he's gonna stick around. I'm pretty sure Hunt might get that shot. In the off chance we do move a Julius Randle, maybe he backs up Obi. I don't know, or maybe we sign somebody else. But I'm really happy that we have a development staff here who can kind of develop these guys in the background. We don't really have that need for to plug in these young guys who need to play now. It's nice to say, you know what, we can stash some guys and wait for them to develop.
Man, amen. The fact that we even have someone like Walt Perrin who's finding these guys and scouting to actually, we're able to field a summer league team that has competitive NBA ready roster on it is a super refreshed from how we were 5 or 7 years ago, where we had the summer league would never receive a crack of any NBA rotation. We actually have guys up in other teams considering signing if we don't sign them 10-day or 2-way contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see Daquan Jeffries getting snuck up for sure, and some
Ron Hunt too.
Yeah, Hunt too. I selfishly want to keep Hunt. I selfishly want to keep Hunt, but I could definitely see him getting a contract from an NBA team. So salute to the New York Knicks. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add before we get into this Donovan Mitchell situation.
No, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, the gunshots are off. Let's talk about Donovan Mitchell. Before we talk about Donovan Mitchell, you already know what it is. We have, if you want to call, you want to talk to us, dial that number is in the bottom, 319-527-6241. That is 319-527-6241. Let's get ready to rumble, guys. All right, listen, man. For years, the Knicks have been linked to Donovan Mitchell because of Leon Rose being with the CAA. It's been rumored. Even this year, there was a rumor that went around and said if Donovan Mitchell loses in the first round, he is going to leave Utah. Long and behold, he lost in the first round. Long and behold, it looks like he's trying to leave Utah. Now, it's funny enough because Utah tried to play coy, even though they were doing these moves, trading Gobert for 4 first-round picks. Trying to play coy. Oh, we're trying to build around Donovan, and all of a sudden they're coming back to the table. It's like, oh, you know what? We're open to it. And it's funny to me because when I look back at the things that transpired before that, I'm starting to think. Shout out to World Wide West.
Shout out to World Wide West. Everywhere we go, we leave a worldwide mess.
Shout out to World Wide West. I'm starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, the Knicks knew what was coming down the pipeline. Between Emmanuel Quickly being chummy with Donovan Mitchell all summer, between the Spurs making their point guard available, and the Knicks hardly making an offer, I thought that was kind of suspicious. But now that Donovan Mitchell is available, it makes me think, well, the Knicks knew this was coming down the pipeline the whole time, and this is why they didn't even go for DeJounte Murray. I'm starting to think my brain is going down that rabbit hole. So now we're here, and we're playing this game of chicken. Now Gobert, as you all know, went to the Timberwolves for 4 first-round picks, plus players, plus Patrick Beverly, plus Malik Beasley, plus Jared Vanderbilt, plus Leonardo Balmero and Walker Kessler. And they get to swap a first-round pick with the Timberwolves as well, which is an insane haul. Insane haul. So now Utah is feeling themselves and they thinking, you know what, we can go to the Knicks and do what we want. Like this, they set the precedent. They like. So I'm gonna start off this conversation with. I'm gonna start off with you, Lee.
Let's go.
They start. Go ahead. What do you think? Do you think is Mitchell worth more than 4 first-round picks and pick swaps and young players? Like,
yes, if they're not New York Knicks picks. If they're an integration of New York Knicks future first-rounders and the ones we got from OKC and the Mavs 2023, the answer is hell yes. I'm willing to give up 5 or 6 out of the 8 that we have and keep 2 of ours. Hopefully 2025, 2023 looks like that's a wash. So they definitely don't want that one because the draft is so deep. And they don't want to be able to consolidate those picks to move up if they end up outside the top 3. So I get that, the much heralded Watanabe, or how you pronounce his name, coming from overseas. But I think he's worth it. He's a top 15 player. I wouldn't put him top 10. Never in the last 3 years have I ever had him top 10. But he's a bona fide scorer. Gave you 26 a game last year. He's from the area. I think he would be the best player we've had since Melo. Definitely the best player we would have on this current roster. There's some caveats I would want to happen. I would love to see Randall go in any trade that involves Mitchell, because I don't see Randall being a cornerstone of any future plan involving us being a contender. That's just my personal opinion.
I almost feel like that's too much to ask for, to have Donovan Mitchell here and Melo gone with Obi getting the minutes. That just seems like too good to be true. But speaking of Melo, everybody keeps comparing this situation to the Melo situation, where the Knicks make this big move. We empty our treasure chest. You look down the line and go, now we don't have any more pieces to pair because we spent all of our assets on Melo. What's your fear of that happening this season?
I don't think there's a fear for that, because when Melo was traded, the only young guy we kept was Landry Fields. Timothy Moskarov, Raymond Felton, Wilson Chandler, Danilo Gallinari were all left, and Landry Fields was the only young guy, along with Jared Jeffries, who was terrible, Ronnie Cherioff, who was terrible, and Amiri Stoudemire. That was more about a pairing of Stoudemire and Carmelo. Right. This is different. You can give away 3 or 4 young guys, and Donovan still joined Brunson, more than likely RJ, and the other guys that we signed that can't be traded: Hartenstein, Sims, Mitchell Robinson. Maybe we keep either between Grimes, IQ, and Reddish. We're keeping one of those guys too, probably. So there's going to be a substantial supporting cast, even Derrick Rose with Donovan Mitchell when he gets here. I think that puts us back in the 4th seed. I'm willing to give up picks much more than I am players. If Obi and RJ involved, that's a no-go for me.
Obi and RJ is your no-go. I hear you for that. Ryan, let's get to you, Ryan. Do you have a fear of overpaying, and what's your price range for trading for a guy like Donovan Mitchell?
Well, first and foremost, I want to join in on the shout out to Worldwide West, because wherever this man goes, he really does leave a worldwide mess, because this man went to game 1 between the Jazz and the Mavericks.
Listen,
and he had the Jazz front office upset because they're like, why is this man here watching the Jazz and the Mavericks? And like, not only did he take Jalen Brunson off Mavericks' hands, now he got Donovan Mitchell all flustered now, like he want to come to New York too. And but then Shams also said that for the Jazz, everybody's on the table. He said nobody's except for getting traded for the on the Jazz right now. So I guess the Jazz are having a fire sale right now. But it's just the fact that this man went to a Utah Jazz and Mavericks game, and potentially like he steals Jalen Brunson. He's potentially going to steal Donovan Mitchell as well from the Jazz, which is hilarious to me. But back to the topic at hand. There's not really a fear for me of the Knicks overpaying for Mitchell just for the simple fact of who we have in the front office. I don't think Leon Rose is going to overpay for Donovan Mitchell. I don't think he's going to give up every single asset the Knicks have just to be desperate to bring Donovan Mitchell in because you have to look at it this way. According to the reports anyway, the Jazz know that the Knicks have the best deal that they could offer them.
Yeah.
Because the Knicks have the picks
Good
and
point.
the Knicks have the young players that they're looking for. So if the Jazz are having a fire sale, they don't really have the leverage. The Knicks have the leverage because the Knicks are like, we have the best package to offer you. So Leon Rose is not forced to where he has to give up the bank to get Donovan Mitchell. Leon Rose can easily play his cards and force the Jazz to drop their price to a reasonable price to bring Donovan Mitchell to New York, where when Donovan Mitchell comes, there's enough pieces left over to where the Knicks can be a competitive team. Now, what would be the asking price for Donovan Mitchell? I wouldn't go over 4 picks, and it would have to be a mix, like Lisa, it would have to be a mixture of Knicks picks and the other picks we acquired from OKC, Dallas, etc. It would have to be a mix of that. I'm not giving up more than 4 first-round picks. And as for young players, like I know we have to give up something to get something. The only young player that's off the table for me is RJ. I'm not giving up RJ by no means necessary. RJ is going to be a Knick, whether Donovan Mitchell is here or not.
Yeah.
I would consider giving up any of the other guys.
Ooh,
but
Obi?
I'm even Obi.
Man,
But
can't do it.
But like I said, I'm not giving up all my young players. Maybe out of the group that we have, I would give up maybe 2 or at most 3, but I'm trying to aim for 2 young players, 4 draft picks, and hopefully they can take I don't know if the Knicks have an expiring deal this year that they can give the Jazz, because I know the Jazz are going to probably be interested in if the Knicks don't have an expiring deal.
We got Derrick Rose.
Okay, so I'd give them an expiring deal as well.
And
because
Cam.
I know the Jazz. Okay, so there you got 2 players that were on expiring deals. So I would probably give them picks, 2 young players, and probably a couple of expiring deals. Because I know the Jazz are going to want to clear cap space for the future. So that would be my offer to them. But anything over that, nah.
In my opinion, that's a worse offer than what they got for Gobert. I would take what Timberwolves gave them for Gobert better than what you just proposed for Donovan Mitchell, who I think is a much better player and has a much higher ceiling than Gobert too. I think they're going to want somebody else. I think Emmanuel quickly is going to have to be involved in any deal as well.
Yo, it's funny you say that because Gobert was an overpay, and this is the thing. This is the thing that kind of threw this throwing everything off. I feel like Gobert is an overpay, so now the expectations are higher than what it should be, because Gobert was such an overpay. And this is not even just me saying. This is like the Athletic saying it. This is the NBA people.
It's the market.
That's like. But here's the thing about the market. Who is our competition?
Exactly. If we're the best, if we can give them the best offer, I'm lowballing them.
Exactly. Exactly, Ryan G. Because the guys who are competition right now are the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat can only offer 3 draft picks, Tyler Hero, and like some other players. So if the Miami Heat are a competition, and Tyler Hero might be the guy they want to offer, but he's I'm with Ryan where I'm going with 4. I'm going with 4 picks because they can offer 3. It seems like they're prioritizing picks over players. So I'm going to try to hardball them with 4 because it's going to be more than the Heat, and our picks are going to be higher than the Heat. So even if we're gonna go with the Heat, so you're gonna go with the Heat, who's gonna be the second, third best team in the NBA off rip. That's what they're thinking in their mind over the Knicks, who have the rep. So I feel like there is a chance, and I'm hoping, I'm not just speaking out my ass here. I'm hoping there's a chance that we can actually play hardball with them and be like, listen, we got Jalen Brunson already. We have the best picks available. You already heard Windsor say they're trying to come back to the table to bait the Knicks into giving more. Why take the bait if no one can come close to our offer? That's the way I'm thinking.
I think we have a couple of things to our advantage that were different than 2010 when we traded for Carmelo Anthony. One, James Dolan is not as heavily involved as he was now as he was then. I think he really forced, from everything we've heard, he really forced Donnie Walsh's hand in really selling the farm for Carmelo Anthony. I think he trusts Leon Rose and Worldwide West to really run this team and have some autonomy to make these decisions without James Dolan stepping in and trying to be the de facto GM of the team and, it's still all in on the superstar. Second, Leon Rose, as of yet, has not been fleeced since he's been in charge of his team. Looking back at every trade that he's made since really he was involved somewhat in terms of giving his opinion on the Marcus Morris trade when Scott Perry was the interim president of basketball operations. We have yet to be ripped off. I think we've won just about every trade that we've made. Some of the free agent signings might have been a little bit too much with the Fournier, might have been $2 or $3 million too much. But so far, Leon's been pretty solid, and he's driven a line in the sand. We've talked about this, where he will not go over that line in order to make the deal. It's why we lost on Gordon Hayward. It's why we lost on DeJounte Murray. He will not cross that line. And I'm hoping, personally, R.J. Barrett, Obi Toppin, and 5 picks is part of that line in these negotiations with Danny Ainge, who is known to be ruthless when he was at Boston.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have to keep in my mind is R.J. Barrett and Obi Toppin. It's been reported that the Knicks are not even interested in trading R.J. Barrett, so I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Great news.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. It's also been reported that Utah Jazz is interested in Grimes. Now, if we do make this trade, I do feel like Grimes probably might be the guy we should keep, based off of just our team makeup. We got two 6 feet guys, right? But I mean, here's the thing though: if Grimes does go, if I'm the Knicks, I'm fighting to keep Cam. In that scenario, I'm fighting to keep Cam in that scenario, because at least in that scenario, we're at least left with like a backup, another guy who can, because in that situation, if they take Grimes, I'm guessing they're gonna try to get Derrick Rose and Evan Fournier to make salaries work, whatever. So if they're taking Grimes, Eric Fournier, Derrick Rose, I'm fighting to keep Cam, so we can have him back up. I guess Donovan Mitchell,
right,
or RJ. That's the way I'm thinking about it. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I definitely agree because, I mean, me being the Knicks front office in this situation, like, I think if I'm to go for after Mitchell, the one guy I would say is definitely expendable is IQ, because the way I think about it is like this. Okay, you're going to have 2 small guards, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that, with Thibs and his defensive system, like, he's going to play them together, but he's going to also try to, at least I would hope, to try to stagger minutes as well, to where, sometimes you'll have Jalen Brunson out there alone with the second unit and have Donovan Mitchell on the bench, or vice versa, you have Donovan Mitchell with the second unit and have Brunson on the bench, and try to, to have a better defensive unit out there at times, so the Knicks aren't always stuck with having to play 2 small guards and having teams kill them on the defensive end. So if you're gonna play like that, then you can let go a guy like IQ, because there's not gonna really be much space for him to grow within the team with 2 point guards like that already on the squad.
Yeah.
So I would see IQ as expendable, but I would try to keep Grimes just for the simple fact that he's a 3-point threat and he's going to be a 3-and-D guy, which I think you're going to need if you're going to have Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson both in your team being 2 small guards. So yeah, I would try to hang on to Grimes if I can. Cam Reddish is another one. I would try to hang on to Cam Reddish, but I'm also being realistic as well, because if you're gonna want Donovan Mitchell, the Knicks are gonna have to give up somebody. So it's like, would I love the Knicks to keep those guys? Of course, but
Right.
is it feasible? I'm not sure it is.
Yeah. Nah, I agree with you. And I'm an IQ guy. I'm probably one of the loudest IQ guys on the panel. But it would hurt, but it makes sense. It's just the way the team is built out. It makes sense to keep the guy who's the taller 3-and-D guy. And speaking of defense, you know what's interesting, Ryan and Lee? Speaking of defense, because I'm like a lot of people are worried. I'm worried about the defense because of, having Jalen Brunson and Mitchell being your backcourt is way too small. But it's interesting because it took me back to Donovan Mitchell's draft scouting report. I had like a flashback because remember Ryan was doing these deep dives back in the day of of the scouting reports. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna read to you Donovan Mitchell's scouting report back in the day before he was in the league. Probably the most appealing part of Mitchell's game lies on the defensive end. By the end of his second year at Louisville, he established himself as a multi-positional stopper who a coach can put on point guards, shooting guards, and even small forwards. Mitchell has outstanding physical tools to be a lockdown defender. With his elite length, strong frame, and quick feet, Mitchell is also a highly competitive guy who's willing to pressure full court, dive to the floor for loose balls, and consistently make things difficult for opposing players. Mitchell has terrific instincts off the ball, as shown by his 2.6 steals for opposing players. Mitchell's has, despite being short for the average 2 guard, his 6'10" wingspan is difficult for opposing guards to shoot over, and he does an exemplary job of using his quickness and strength to stay in front of his man. This was a scouting report coming out of college. and when I was looking at these debates, I had a flashback. I was like, wait a minute. I remember comparing him and Frank Ntilikina back in the day. This kid was a defender. I was contemplating having him on the Knicks because he seemed like a two-way player. Now he's on Utah, and that reputation has preceded him. So, which makes me think, I'm not saying this is still the ideal backcourt, but a 6'11" wingspan, a guy who's a defender, maybe there's a chance that Tom Thibodeau can bring back the old Donovan Mitchell, especially if he has to share some creating responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes what happens is when you are the man and you're asked to do a lot, you mail it in on the defensive end. You started to see with RJ Barrett towards the end of the season how his defense fell off as he took more of the offensive load. So I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if there's something there defensively. I don't know.
Well, I'll say this. Donovan Mitchell's coach at Louisville is Rick Pitino. You cannot play for Rick Pitino if you don't play defense. So Donovan Mitchell definitely had to defend when he was in Louisville. Now, when he got to Utah, I don't know what responsibilities Dan Snyder really put on him. Maybe Dan Snyder gave him more offensive responsibility and took away some of that responsibility on defense just so he can reserve his energy to play offense. But, I mean, with that being his scouting report in college, you would hope that if he does come to New York, Thibs can get it back out of him since Thibs is a defensive coach. And, you watch Knicks Summer League team, that's what Thibs expects from the Knicks. You watch Knicks, we watched the Knicks with under Thibs for the last couple of seasons, especially the previous season when they hit the playoffs. The Knicks defense was stifling. That's the type of defense you play under Thibs. So, it's encouraging to know that, he did have that mindset when he was in college playing for Louisville, and maybe it can be taken out of him, with Thibs, and maybe coach that back into him. But we also have to go by what we saw in Utah, and what we saw in Utah was not that much defensive effort. So
right, yeah, they had Gobert. They relied on a Gobert. I don't know.
I do think these conversations require a little bit of nuance that we're obviously never going to get when we're watching ESPN and Fox Sports Southwest. It's all about the LOL Knicks and Knicks for Clits talking points. When you look at the backcourt of two guys that are 6'1", obviously there's concerns height-wise that they're going to be too small to guard anyone on the perimeter consistently when they're playing together in tandem. But if you look at the tandem that Utah had in the last 2 or 3 seasons with Mike Conley, who was 6'1", and Donovan Mitchell, that's a very different scenario playing under Quinn Snyder, who was not an excellent team defensive coach, but was graced with the defensive anchor of Rudy Gobert. There was a lot of pressure on those two to be that first line of defense. That won't necessarily be the case here in New York when R.J. Barrett alone is better than Utah's next best defender, Royce O'Neal. Like he would be coming to a situation playing a team of guys Thibs only gives minutes to when they're hitting their rotations and playing with effort and grit on the defensive end. So I don't have as much worry as I do with Mitchell coming in and fitting in with this team as I did comparing him with what he was in Utah. I mean, Derrick Rose is only 6'2". Quickly's only 6'3", and they've been doing a fine job defending the perimeter over the last 2 or 3 seasons coming off the bench. So I haven't heard those concerns with those two guys, especially Rose, who's in his mid-30s and only 6 feet 2 inches. I have a feeling that Brunson, who's a very feisty defender, who started on the 7th best defensive team in the NBA last year, the Mavs, I think he can do a fine job guarding and going under strings to defend the perimeter guys that we face on opposing teams.
Yeah, very well said, man. Very well said. It's
just a little nuance. So you're not gonna do it from ESPN, you know. They just want to be hating the Knicks. LOL, man.
Yeah, LOL Knicks, man. We don't. This is what you get here, man. You get the nuance. You're gonna get the real deep dives on why it could or couldn't work. So you're absolutely right about that, man. All good points. And you know what? It's funny because I still have. I've said this the last show. I don't know. I feel like eventually we might have to separate them. It might not be this year. Maybe it'll be next year or the year after. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the future. But there might be a world where Donovan Mitchell can be a better defender. I mean, Jalen Brunson tries, but it might be a world where Donovan Mitchell could be a better defender and actually help relegate help kind of stop the bleeding for Brunson. I'm hoping that's the case. So you know what? We got 4 callers in the queue, so let's get to these callers, all right? So shout out to everybody in chat first and foremost. Shout out to Knickerbocker, Nick Yak, Daniel Sturgis, Be Civilized, Agent Super Argo, and everybody else is rocking with the KLT show. If you're loving the content so far, please hit that like button and subscribe. The likes are free. It helps the algorithms and it helps us get seen more and more by Knicks fans and Knicks Nation and people who are interested in talking NBA and Knicks. So please help us out there. And also, you already know what it is. If you want to call, dial the number 319-527-6241. All right, now let's get to it. First caller up. Let us know what your name is and where you're from and what do you want to talk about.
Hey, this is Keith in Atlanta.
What's going on, Keith?
How you doing, bro? I got a couple of things. First of all, as usual, great job. I mean, I've been listening to you guys. I've been listening to you from the beginning to this time, which is actually pretty amazing.
Twice, yeah.
You guys all pretty much hit a lot of the points that I was going to bring up. Like the first thing I wanted to say was, Ryan, I agree with you on 99% of the stuff you say. This tonight, I got to say, I got to disagree on one thing about the Melo trade. The Melo trade was completely different, in my opinion, because everything we gave up in the Melo trade was starters. Even though we gave up our supposed core, they were all starters. It's a completely different scenario now in the Mitchell trade, because even if we gave up a bunch of starters, we have so many young guys and so much of a deeper bench than we were in. We got a lot more young players now than we did for the Melo trade. So even if we gave up 3 or 4, which I don't think it's going to take that much, and I really wouldn't give up that much, but even if we had to give up 2 or 3 young people, it still ain't emptying the cupboards completely. And I think the more young players they get, the less picks they're going to get. Utah don't want picks right now, don't want players right now. So I think they're going to probably end up with the majority of those picks.
Okay.
I mean, does that make sense to anybody? Or
no, I mean that's a fair point. That's definitely a fair point. I guess for me, it's like you want to sustain. I feel like the people who are the teams who sustain winning for long periods of time are the teams who have foundation pieces that built through the draft. And you know what? So I guess as long as RJ, of course, is a foundation piece. Mitch, we're trying to figure out that's a foundation piece as well. And hopefully one of these treasure troves of young guys are also a foundation piece because it kind of helps solidify, us for long periods of time. So I get it. And it's a valid point. It's a valid point.
I think I got a pretty. I'm 52. I've been watching basketball all my life. I've been a Knicks fan since I can remember. Back to the Truck Robinson, Louis Orr days, Trent Tucker, all of those cats. That's when I started watching the Knicks, or actually being able to understand watching basketball.
Right.
But I think I brought up the last time I called in. The one player that I hate to lose out of everything that we got going, I know RJ is, he's untouchable. But if you think about what Utah wants, I don't think there's anywhere in the world, if we fighting for anything, is to keep Grimes. Because if you look at the contract, this is his second year. So he's only got 1 year under his belt. So the contract is the money's not going to be a big deal for Utah. It's not like they're going to pay a whole lot of money for him. And then he's a first-round pick, so they're going to have that last year option that they can say, okay, we can extend him that last year if we want to. So he's perfect for the timeline as far as, what they're trying to do. You got to add Fournier in there for salary. We all know, as much as we all would like Randall to be included, 9 times out of 10, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So to make the salary right, they're going to have to put in Fournier. So the way I'm thinking is probably going to be something like Fournier, Grimes, and Quick. I don't think Obi's going anywhere because, as y'all all been saying for months now, he's Leon Rose's first pick. I don't see him leaving unless absolutely necessary. So I guess bottom line, I think it's going to end up being you got to keep Cam or Grimes. Yeah. I don't think they're going to go for Cam because Cam is up for extension, and they're going to have to make a decision on whether to pay him or not. So he's not going. The only players that I can see that fit that's actually going to go for young guys, Grimes and Quick, they're gone. Maybe McBride, but I doubt it. They'd probably go with Quick instead, more so than McBride.
Yeah.
And probably 5 picks, 3 of which we just got this year, and 2 of ours, and maybe a pick swap.
Yeah.
That 6-1 backcourt though, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Because Utah, they had a 6-1, both of those guys were small, and they played good team defense. It wasn't until the playoffs where teams were able to expose it, because not every team has a trio that can run a pick and roll and expose the defensive player of the year. But when you get to the playoffs, and you're running up against a Doncic and Brunson, they can expose. They can expose, Gobert and get him on the bench in the second, 5 minutes left to go in the game. But for 82 games during the regular season, that's only going to happen a handful of times. So I don't foresee that. And Mitch Rob is not Gobert. Mitch Rob's a whole lot better defender on the pick and roll than Gobert. So if we funnel everything to Mitch just like they did in Utah, funnel everything to Gobert, I don't think we're going to get exposed in the playoffs when it comes time to pick and roll up top. I think if we play good enough defense on the perimeter, I don't see how we can't be a top 12 defense.
All right. Yep. All right, cool. Well, all good points, man. Thank you for calling in. I want to get to the rest of these calls.
Sorry, I got along with it.
No, it's fine. You was on point, man.
Nice.
I was listening. You was on point. You was on point. I was letting you rock. You was on point.
We got really lucky that Summer League and this Donovan Mitchell trade rumors are happening at the same time, because it's a great opportunity for Grimes and McBride to sell themselves as trade targets.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. For these other GMs, because Grimes has never looked more valuable than he does right now. It's also funny that we stole Walt Perrin from Utah to come to New York to draft Grimes just to send him right back to Utah on a Donovan Mitchell trade. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's some weird triangle stuff that's happening. Right
Yeah.
And Johnny Bryant too.
Yeah, and Johnny Bryant.
Yeah,
I'm so glad Johnny Bryant is still here. Gunshots.
Me too.
I know you won the Utah job, but I'm sorry, man. I'm glad you're still here. I'm not trying to be a hater. I just love you, Johnny. That's all.
Yep.
We just need you as insurance just in case things go south, all right? Just in case things go south. But also to his point too, we have other centers here who kind of, I know he said Mitch is better in pick and roll, but I think he really meant to say was he's a little bit better at guarding the perimeter. And not saying he's Gobert, like he's, Noel level, but he's a little bit better at guarding perimeter. But also we have other centers here who are actually a little bit better at guarding perimeter than even Mitch. So we have Sims here, and we have what's the backup center's name again? I'm stay forgetting names.
Hardenstein.
And we have Hardenstein here who's also pretty decent at guarding perimeter as well. All right. Next caller up, we got Edson from Long Island.
How's it going, guys?
What's going on, man?
Hey, man.
Nothing much. It's nice warm weather for the nights. People out and about out in the east. And speak of things heating up, man, I didn't expect shit. Sorry, expecting things like to go back so hot over the off season. I was just content about what we did through the draft.
Yeah.
These signings, and we're done.
Done.
But here we go. The any age. Out and about.
The devil.
Like the killer clown is on the loose. And people forget about that. It's like saying, oh, okay, these seems like good ideas. So, people just putting random stuff just for clicks or just for likes and stuff like that. And I'm just looking at, dude, you're really falling for this, aren't you? We're really all falling for this. But for business wise, okay? I am trying to look for match salaries, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if I would put Fournier and Rose together.
Right.
Now as far as picking one of our young guys, I will put Reddish fourth. Because why? We really don't know what we have with Reddish. Sucks that he got injured last season, and plus that just wasn't feeling it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to me that what Reddish was sitting right next to Leon. There might be something going on, a little heart-to-heart talking in between. So, understanding that, hey, if you get traded, then nothing hard. It's just business. And pretty much down the road, hey, you could call him back and say, hey, I could get you a good deal.
Yeah.
Working with us, you could, you'll still be banging with RJ. Who knows? But I would put Reddish on the table. As far as, everyone else is proven. Everyone else, we meshed with, we liked, we picked. From Grimes to McBride, even Quick, okay? Quick grew on Tibbs. Aside from Cam, Quick will be on the table for me, okay, personally. Now for picks. I don't know if people realize this, but all those unprotected picks are, to me, is house money. It's not the bank money, it's not my money, it's the house money. You can play with that. So Dallas, Washington, and what else? I had my notes right here. So it was Dallas and Washington. Milwaukee, I know that's a little bit down the road.
Right.
But that's still protected. That's fine. I'll put in there. It's when I get sketchy with you when it comes to my draft picks. And this is what people start to fumble up. Say, you know what? I'll give it to my own picks or whatnot. It's like, no. I'll do a swap. But if Danny Ainge's one of my picks, give me one of the give me Minnesota's. I know people are going to laugh. It's like, he ain't going to do that. Well, that's the point. Keep him honest. You don't want him to reach in the top shelf and stuffing things in his jeans. It's like, hey, put that back.
I can see that. I can't. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's gonna be a back and forth for a while. So if I can see this dance, I mean, Shams already said this dance is probably gonna go on for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Right, of course. Come on,
right.
You're dealing with an unstoppable force versus the immovable object, the rip-off versus the cheapskate. Who's gonna win out? It's gonna be a stalemate for quite a bit.
It's gonna be a stalemate for Tyson. You're right about that. But thanks for calling in, man. I want to get through the next callers, but I appreciate you calling in, man, for sure.
All right.
All right. Anything to add to that, guys? He says, screw getting our own picks, pick swaps.
You can go. You can get me.
I'll say this. I'm just happy that Steve Mills is no longer the president of basketball operations. This deal would have been done this morning, and we've done all day. First of all, we wouldn't have anyone else's picks. We've only had ours.
Man,
out the door, an entire young core for Donovan Mitchell coming to play with Nerlens Noel. It would be hell on earth, man. For real.
Man, some of these packages, man, some people's like, yo, I'll give them OBIQ, Cam, Grimes, plus 6 and 7 draft picks. I'm just like, y'all suck at negotiating, dog. Like,
for real.
Shout out Long Island. Like, that's where my pops is from. It's also where Steve Mills is from. And Steve Mills is a bum, bro. He's a bum.
I'm still mad at Steve Mills for giving Ron Baker, $8 million.
Yeah.
He was the boss. I still remember when the boss got fired and Steve Mills was the man for one day. Steve Mills was the boss for one day. And the one day he was the boss, he gave Ron Baker $9 million. One day.
Wasn't he also behind the Tim Hardaway contract?
Yes, he was behind the $72 million the hard way. Yes, the harder way. I still remember the episode from back in the day. Man.
Oh man.
Yo, let's go. Next caller up, we got our man Jason. What's going on, Jason?
What's up, fellas?
What's going on, man?
First,
Hey man, what's going on?
Yep.
I think I gotta put some respect on Dice's name, because I know we're not talking about Summer League, but when I first heard that he was gonna be the Summer League coach, I was like, that's Tibbs' guy. Like, I wanted someone else, but you know what? He got them boys playing hard. I think we gotta put a little bit of respect on the game.
Agreed, man.
I want to Mitchell. I mean, I already said a lot of what I would have to say last episode.
Mm-hmm.
All I'll say is this: 2 things to add. One, you're right. Mitchell was a good defensive player his first 2 seasons. Like, there's a account called Analytics, something like that, on Twitter, and he put up like his advanced stats. He was a positive defensive player his first 2 seasons, and then he just fit. And I don't know if that's because he's not happy, his usage went up. I don't know. I know the last year you could tell he just wasn't happy in Utah, but I'm just saying it's there. He can be a good defensive player. It's not like he's not like Tim Hardaway Jr., who's never a good defensive player.
Right.
And then the other thing I'll say is a lot of people will say, like, oh, like, I think I don't know the other guy's name on the show, but he said it, how like the Jazz had 2 small guards, right?
Right. I meant from ATL. Yeah.
Oh, but they failed in the playoffs. Okay, they failed in the playoffs. They also had the best record in the NBA, and they got to the second round of the playoffs. If the Knicks get to the second round of the playoffs and have the best record in the NBA, that'll change everything about the way people look at the Knicks. I'm not saying we're going to win it. That's the same thing as winning a championship, but that's a big deal. People just throw that out there like, oh, if we're not going to win a championship, who cares?
Now, I agree with you, man. It's a stepping stone, man. Like, here's the thing. If we manage our books right, I mean, this is why you hope they move Randall, even though I don't think it's likely, but this is why you kind of even hope that Randall goes an uptick, because if that happens and we have Donovan Mitchell here, then maybe, just maybe, we can attract another person here, because we already have a foundation in place with RJ Barrett and Donovan Mitchell. That's the big hope, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not as down on Randall as everyone else is. I think you guys know that. Like, here's my thing with Knicks fans, and I think you guys fall into this camp too, and tell me correct me if I'm wrong. When we were always talking about places to move Randall to, right? You would always say, oh, he would fit on a team that had like an actual number 1, right?
Right. And
you know that's going to be the Knicks. The Mitchell's here.
You know what? You know what it is for me, Jason? And correct me, because you've been following me for the whole year, following us the whole year. I've been defending Randall for, I think, the first 2 months of the season when everybody was bagging on Randall. I was defending him. My thing with Randall is that I don't trust his temperament long term for New York. Isn't that, I think being in a smaller market, along with not being the first option, is going to benefit him. Because I just don't trust his mental. That's really it is long term for me. I don't trust his mental. So even if he does play well for a year, I feel like there's gonna be like a time limit. You know what I mean? Before it all kind of blows up in our face again. But if he's in a,
I was gonna say I kind of agree, but like no matter what, I don't think Obi or Randall are gonna be. If they make this move for Mitchell, neither of them are the player we really need at the 4 spot. Like, so it doesn't really matter to me. You need a elite defensive player at the 4 spot if you have Mitchell. And talking about like in the future. Like, I'm not saying you have to trade one of these guys right now.
Right.
But I'm saying like when you build this team to be like for playoffs, you're gonna want a better defensive 4 than Obi and Randall. So that's all. So in the long run, I agree. But I'm just saying in the short run, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people say it is, because he's not going to be the guy. And there's no way he could think he's the guy with Donovan Mitchell's here.
Yeah. For me, with Obi, for me, it's one of those things. If Obi's offense, because there's certain players whose offense is so good that even if his defense isn't good, his offense is that good that it's going to offset it. And I'm not saying that's Obi, but I'm saying it's a possibility, because for me, Obi's finishing is just so strong that he has a chance to offset it. And even though I understand what you're saying, though, defensively, he's not he doesn't have that side to side lateral movement on the defensive end, but he gives you that effort where he can kind of recover. And you've seen that little 2-week stretch, he was getting beat. He wasn't playing perfect defense, but he was able to recover a lot of times just with his effort and his activity level. So you hoping that's kind of what happens. But I understand what your point is. But I think
he's a bad defender.
Huh?
I'm just saying I'm not saying he's a bad defender.
Right.
And I'm not even saying, I'm just saying they need an elite defender at that spot. That's all I'm saying. So yes, Obi I think can get better defensively, but is he ever going to be an elite defensive player? I don't think so. And that's all I got. Got you.
All right.
I got a response to that. I think that Utah Jazz, they have a player on their roster that's very open to being traded that I think would be a great toss in any Donovan Mitchell trade. That's Jared Vanderbilt. The dude guarded all 5 positions in his time in Minnesota. Has gotten better every year, and he's one of the best defensive perimeter players in the NBA. He's under 25 years old, and I think Jazz just got him in that Rudy Gobert trade, and I thought he was the best player they got back in terms of long-term potential, especially on the defensive end. He's raw offensively, but, man, if he was the backup power forward behind Obi and Randall, or, man, prayers up, we get rid of Randall, he would be a fantastic addition off the bench to be able to actually play some defense and guard multiple positions, especially when you have a 6-1 backcourt.
That's what's up. I mean, I hope the Knicks ask for him if it ever comes to be that, because we definitely gonna need some defensive help.
Scott Perry's a good evaluator of talent. I wouldn't be surprised. And I got one more thing to say to respond about caller 2.
Go ahead.
And I'm glad he brought it up, and you brought it up too, about what happened to Donovan Mitchell after his first 2 years with Utah. If you look at the roster from 18 and 19, which is before Mike Conley came, and you go by minutes played, these are the guys that were playing alongside Donovan Mitchell. He went from 3 elite defenders in Ricky Rubio, Jay Crowder, and Derek Favors to Jordan Clarkson, Jeff Green, and Emmanuel Mudiay. That's a huge shift down once that trade happened with Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic got added to the team that year too, the 1920 season. The roster of the Utah Jazz changed dramatically, which applied a lot more pressure on Donovan Mitchell to actually have to play defense and not be hidden on that end, because he had great teammates around him. Ricky Rubio is an elite defender. So was Derek Favors 4 years ago.
You're right.
I mean, that's a really big distinction to be made. Again, nuance key. And Jay Crowder is one of the best defenders in the NBA as well. So that's where he went from. And then he went to Bojan Bogdanovic, Jeff Green, and Emmanuel Mudiay, which is a huge step down defensively, and put more pressure on him to have to play and guard better players on the defensive end.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that kind of goes to Jason's point too, that we just need we need better defenders all around them in general to offset it. Yeah. I mean, hopefully RJ kind of picks up on that side, and we have Mitch, who's a good defender as well.
That's true.
But yeah, we're gonna need better defenders to offset that. But yeah, it's a really good point. All right. Next caller up. I think we got Fritz. Fritz is our next caller.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on, Fritz?
Yo.
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, I just wanted to bring up a few points. I think with a lot of fans, they get wrong. What's the actual value? What's his actual value? Because he's not a two-way player, but he's about top 15. And sometimes people are thinking top 5. Like what people gave up for Kawhi isn't the type of trade that we're going to be doing here. And we're not initiating the trade. Utah's initiating.
Interesting.
So it's not. Also, in the Kawhi the Kawhi trade, Clippers were stealing. They were getting a player that nobody wanted to. They didn't want to trade, so they were going out of their way to take someone from a team who actually wanted him. So me personally, I would be willing to give up more picks than talent. So if you allow me to keep my younger players, hey, I give you more picks. So what I think is going to happen, I don't think it's going to be a direct trade. The Knicks and the Jazz are not going to trade directly because the Jazz blueprint now is let's be bad for the year. They want an impact player 2023. So the players don't matter. They may want one good young player, but the players don't matter. They want expiring.
They want to tank.
Expiring deals.
They want to tank like OKC.
They
That's
want
for sure.
Yeah, and they want. See, they're going to be bad if they're in the top 5. They want a couple more picks. Hey, can I move top 2, or if I'm number 2, can I get number 1? That's where we're at. So the trade I had in mind was the Knicks, Jazz, Hornets.
Oh, Randall to the Hornets.
yeah, Randall to the Hornets.
Yep.
But Hornets been quiet, even though they lost their number 1 re-signing of the summer. So Knicks would get Donovan Mitchell. Knicks would get P.J. Washington.
Ooh.
Knicks would get 2 of those second-round picks back. Hornets would get Julius Randle. They're only giving up Kelly Oubre. They're only giving up P.J. Washington. And they're giving up those 2 picks back. Jazz.
I love that idea,
They get what they want. 1-year deals. Derrick Rose. Kelly Oubre. Quentin Grimes. 5 first-round picks.
I think that could be even.
And I don't think...
To take back more Jazz players too. That could open the door for us to take back to Patrick Beverly or a Vanderbilt as well.
Yes, but the thing is, since they just traded them, they can only be traded 1 for 1. So you have to, you can only trade 1 player for them. You can kind of make it 2 trades if, you could break down a trade, but it has to be 1 for 1 player. But that's how I think. I don't think it's as big as people think it is. I think Knicks just have to find the right partners.
Love that
I think
idea.
the Knicks are going to give up a young player. I don't think they're going to give a bunch of young players. We're not the initiator of the trade. We're not the ones begging to offload this player. They are the ones to offload this player. We are the ones with the picks. No one else has close the amount of picks.
That's true.
Miami has 2 picks. Miami's going to be at the top of the league, 20s.
Yeah.
2 picks in the 20s.
Yeah, I saw 3.
And they're not even this year.
Yeah, they have to involve another team to even sniff close to us. So, now all good points, Fritz.
Yeah.
All good points.
Thumbs up for that comment.
So I think Knicks are in the driver's seat. I think the Knicks could give them a haul they can be happy with, but I don't think there's going to be these big names that you're thinking are jumping around because they want a young cornerstone player. And they don't want above average.
and to be honest, Fritz, I agree with you. Like we've been saying for a while that Leon Rose isn't the guy who's going to outbid himself. That's not how he moves. So people are expecting. I don't know, man. If we're wrong, we're wrong. But ESPN and all these guys are expecting these big hauls and like eight picks and 12 young players and whatever. But he's just never moved like that. Like Leon Rose just never moved like that so far. So I don't expect him to all of a sudden do that.
He doesn't move like that. He's not going to bid against himself. Like just because somebody else cheated you, we're not.
Right. All right.
You approached us for what if we said.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Good point, Fritz. Thanks for calling in. Or patching in, because you're here. All right, man. Good talk. I don't have anything else to add to this conversation. Other than I'm still curious to see if we get Donovan Mitchell, what our plan is long term. If we try to flip, Jalen Brunson, because the only downside to this thing is the timing. And I only say that because we just gave Brunson the bag. And if you just giving Brunson the bag for him to share the court with Donovan Mitchell, that means the numbers aren't going to really reflect to me the bag that we gave him. Really, like this might have been his chance to average 20 and 6 or something like that. But now, since if we do get Donovan Mitchell, I don't see him averaging 20 and 6 now. He's going to be averaging when he's been pretty much probably averaging in Dallas, which kind of makes it look more like an overpay, which makes me feel like he might be harder to move now down the line because he's not a proven concept now. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I really have to add. But I mean, if we're winning, then it doesn't matter. It is right. If winning, it doesn't matter. But that's my concern with this move and the timing of this.
I think Thibs can figure out a way to make that smaller backcourt work, even if it means staggering minutes or diversifying the roster and bringing in taller, more defender, switchable wings to play alongside him. If I could trust anyone in the last 20 years of Knicks coaches to figure it out, it's Tom Thibodeau, who's a defensive genius. If anything, he's a genius on the defensive side, not so much the offensive side. But I think Mitchell and Brunson are good enough so they can figure it out how to work together. Already friends. That's been reported. There have been buddies that goes back a couple of years. So that's a good thing, too. I get a little greedy. Bojan Bogdanovic, Jared Vanderbilt, Patrick Beverly. There's some other guys in that Jazz roster I'm very interested in. I would love to have his throwing pieces.
Yeah.
Multiple guys.
Yeah, Patrick Beverly just smells like New York, man.
He does.
Yeah, he do.
He's a dog.
Smells like New York. Chris Paul slander and all.
For real.
Man. Oh, what a mess out here.
Shout out the World Wide West. Everywhere we go, we leave a worldwide mess.
All right, man. Shout out to the guys in the chat. I think it's a good time to wrap it up. Shout out to Nick Yak, Walter White, Pudge, NYC, Picks for Timmy, Keith Watkins, and everybody else is rocking with the KOT show. All right. If you like, first of all, let me hit that. Hold on. Somebody sent a super chat. Is that Echelon? Since the $5 super chat, I can't read the little hieroglyphics name you have there. It says, even if we don't deal, it's all gas, no light. We're on course. Stick to the original plan. Never mind the hate dang. If we do, dang. If we don't.
Yeah,
dang if we do, dang if we don't. Okay,
yeah, damn,
I got it.
Yeah.
Dang.
He just said the clean way.
Yeah. Never to hate, comma, dang if we do, dang if we don't. Got you. I heard you. Thank you for the super chat, man. It's gonna go a long way. Oh, yeah, you are damn if we do, damn if we don't. I hear you. All right, that is our show. So Lee, let them know, where can they find you, sir?
I got some articles coming out next week on posting and toasting. That's some fun ones. One of them's going to be which young superstars are most likely to leave their current teams. That's going to piss a lot of people off.
Nice.
And I also have some stuff in the pipeline for posting and toasting as well. So you can find me on those channels writing about the Knicks and the NBA at large.
All right. And shout out to Enis Spada, I think it's Spanada, who just subscribed to the channel. Shout out to you. Hit that subscribe button if you want to subscribe as well. Ryan, let her know where they can find you, sir.
You can find me on Instagram at Sir G is chilling.
Sir G is chilling.
That's SIRG is CHILLIN. You can also find me at Sir G's Corner. Content is coming soon. You can also find me on Twitter at RyanGKOT. And of course, new financial agents. So, if you need any help with the finances, retirement plans, etc., hit me up through one of my social media platforms and you can set up an appointment.
Get that money right, all right?
Yes.
You already know, man. You can find us. You can find us. You can get the KOT snapbacks at thenickoftimeshow.com/catalog. So definitely do that. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Nick of Time. The KOT Show on Twitter, Nick of Time Show on Instagram, and the Nick of Time Show on Facebook. Also, listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, everywhere you can listen to podcasts. And yeah, that's it, man. Great show, guys. I don't know when the next game is going to be. I don't think it's on the schedule yet, but we'll be here after the next Summer League game to talk about whatever Summer League game and any update that's going to happen for Knicks Nation. But
yes, sir. Summer League ring, here we come.
Yes, Summer League championship is on the way. Hold up. Shout out to my guy JT Reddick who sends a $4.99 super chat. He says, "Yeah, salute, great show. Long as the price is right, can't trade both a bunch of picks and young players. One or the other." I hear you, sir. One or the other. I'm with it. Shout out to Be Civilized. Also says dope show. All right. Salute to my guy Del Chapman as well. All right. That is our show. And as always,
shout out the Worldwide West. Everywhere we go, we leave a worldwide mess.
It's a mess out here in these Knicks YouTube streets. That is our show. We out of here. Peace.
Peace.